I chose to leave before you could watch me destroy you. The words hit harder than the winter wind clawing through the hospital window, sharper than the steady, unforgiving beep of the heart monitor beside Jungkook's trembling body. He stared at Jimin like the world had just cracked open beneath his feet, like gravity itself had betrayed him. Say that again, Jungkook whispered, his voice raw, barely holding together. His fingers tightened around the thin hospital blanket, knuckles turning white as if pain could anchor him to something real. Jimin didn't move closer. That was the first thing Jungkook noticed, not the words, not the coldness, but the distance. Jimin, who always closed every gap between them without thinking, now stood by the door like a stranger who had taken a wrong turn into the wrong life. The dim fluorescent light cast shadows across his face, hiding the softness Jungkook used to memorize in the quiet hours of the night. I'm leaving, Jimin said again, quieter this time but firmer. Final, the scent of antiseptic filled the air, suffocating, mixing with something heavier, something unsaid. Jungkook's chest tightened as if invisible hands were squeezing the breath out of him. Because of me? Jungkook asked, his voice cracking despite every effort to stay composed. Or because you stopped loving? Silence followed, thick and suffocating. Jimin's jaw clenched. His fingers twitched at his sides, a habit Jungkook knew too well. It meant he was holding something back, something dangerous. Does it matter? Jimin finally replied it did. It mattered more than anything. Jungkook let out a hollow laugh, the sound echoing against the sterile walls. You don't get to do that. You don't get to walk in here after everything, after what happened, and pretend like this is nothing. His voice rose, breaking through the mechanical rhythm of the machines. I almost died, Jimin. The words hung between them like shattered glass. For a moment, something cracked in Jimin's expression. A flicker of pain, guilt, fear. It was gone just as quickly as it appeared. I know, Jimin said, his voice barely audible. And that was what terrified Jungkook the most, because Jimin didn't look surprised. He looked like he had expected it. A memory flashed in Jungkook's mind, blurred, incomplete, like a dream slipping through his fingers. Screeching tires, a flash of headlights. A hand pushing him out of the way, Jimin's hand. Jungkook's breath hitched. You knew, did you? Jimin didn't answer, but silence, Jungkook realized, could be louder than any confession. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. Jungkook pushed himself up despite the pain shooting through his ribs, ignoring the warning beeps that spiked on the monitor. Tell me the truth, he demanded. Why does it feel like you're not leaving me but running from something? Jimin's eyes finally met his, and for a second Jungkook saw it clearly, the fear Jimin had been hiding, buried so deep it had turned into something darker. I'm not running, Jimin said, a pause. I'm protecting you. The words should have comforted him, they didn't. From what? Jungkook asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. From who? Jimin hesitated. That hesitation was everything. Jungkook's heart pounded louder than the machines around him. His mind raced, piecing together fragments he didn't want to understand. You think I'm the problem, Jungkook said slowly, the realization creeping in like poison. You think I'm the reason everything's falling apart. Jimin's expression faltered, and that was answer enough. The ache in Jungkook's chest wasn't from his injuries anymore, it was something deeper, something irreversible. You're wrong, Jungkook said, his voice trembling. Whatever you're trying to fix by leaving, it's not going to work. Jimin closed his eyes briefly, as if those words cut deeper than anything else. I know, he whispered. Jungkook froze, because that meant Jimin wasn't leaving to fix things. He was leaving knowing it would break them. The realization hit like a tidal wave. Then why? Jungkook choked out. Jimin opened his eyes again, and this time there was no hesitation, no softness, just a quiet, devastating certainty. If I stay, he said, you won't survive what's coming. The words sent a chill down Jungkook's spine. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, low and ominous, as rain began to strike the window in uneven, restless rhythms. What's coming? Jungkook asked, fear tightening his throat. Jimin didn't answer. Instead, he took a step back, another. Each step felt like a knife twisting deeper into Jungkook's chest. Jimin, Jungkook called out, panic rising now, raw and unfiltered. Don't do this. Don't leave like this, not without telling me the truth. Jimin stopped at the door. For a moment, it seemed like he might turn back, like he might break, but he didn't. I love you, Jimin said, his voice steady despite the storm raging behind his eyes. That's why I have to go. Door opened, cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and something darker, something unknown. And then Jimin was gone. The sound of the door closing echoed like a final verdict. Jungkook sat there, frozen, the world around him dissolving into silence except for the relentless beeping of the monitor. His hands trembled as he stared at the empty space Jimin had left behind. I don't need protection, he whispered into the void, but deep down something told him Jimin wasn't lying, because the fear in Jimin's eyes, it wasn't fear of losing Jungkook, it was fear of what would happen if Jungkook stayed. The rain hadn't stopped. It crawled down the hospital windows like something alive, blurring the outside world into streaks of grey and silver. Jungkook hadn't moved since the door closed behind Jimin. Not really. His body remained in the same rigid position, but inside everything had shifted, fractured, splintered into questions that refused to stay quiet. The machines beside him kept breathing for him in steady mechanical rhythms, but his chest felt hollow, like the air inside him didn't belong anymore. I'm protecting you. Words replayed over and over again, each repetition sharper than the last. From what? Jungkook murmured, his voice hoarse, barely audible even to himself. No answer came, only the sound of rain. A sudden flicker of pain pulsed through his ribs as he tried to sit up straighter. The bandages wrapped tightly around his torso pulled against his skin, grounding him in the reality he wanted to deny. He wasn't supposed to remember much. That's what the doctor had said. Trauma did that, erased the worst parts. But something was wrong, because the worst part didn't feel erased. It felt hidden. Jungkook clenched his fists, closing his eyes as he forced his mind backward, pushing past the haze, past the blurred edges of memory. There was a road, dark, empty, the glow of streetlights flickering above like dying stars. And then a sound, a car too fast, too close. His breath hitched sharply. I almost died, he whispered again, but this time it felt different, not like a realization, like a warning. The door creaked open behind him. Jungkook's eyes snapped open, heart leaping into his throat as he turned his head, half expecting, half hoping it was Jimin coming back. It wasn't. A nurse stepped in quietly, her expression soft but cautious, as if she could sense the storm still raging in the room. You shouldn't be sitting up like that, she said gently, moving closer to adjust the IV line. Your condition is still unstable. Jungkook didn't respond at first. His eyes remained fixed on the door like it might open again if he stared hard enough. He not coming back tonight, the nurse added after a moment, her voice quieter now, that got his attention. Jungkook turned slowly. You saw him, she hesitated, too long, a flick of unease twisted in Jungkook's chest. She said finally. He left in a hurry. He say anything? Jungkook pressed, his voice suddenly urgent. To anyone? The nurse shook her head. No, but she paused, biting her lip slightly as if debating whether to continue. Jungkook's pulse quickened. But what? There was someone else, she admitted. The room seemed to tilt. Someone else, Jungkook repeated, his voice dropping. She nodded. A man. He didn't come inside, just stood at the end of the hallway watching. A cold sensation crept up Jungkook's spine. Chinghu, you, she said. Silence fell heavily between them. Jungkook's fingers tightened around the edge of the bed. What did he look like? I didn't see clearly, she replied. Tall, dressed in black. He left right after your visitor did. Your visitor, not Jimin, not by name, as if saying it out loud might make something real. Jungkook swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. Why didn't anyone stop him? The nurse gave a small, uneasy smile. He didn't do anything wrong. That was the problem. Neither had Jimin, and yet he left like he was running from something inevitable. Can you leave me alone? Jungkook asked quietly. The nurse studied him for a moment, concern evident in her eyes, but she nodded. Call if you need anything. Door closed again. This time the silence felt different, heavier. Jungkook exhaled slowly, dragging a hand through his hair as his thoughts spiraled faster. A man watching him. Jimin leaving without explanation. A memory that didn't feel complete. None of it was coincidence. His gaze shifted to the small table beside the bed. His phone sat there, untouched since he'd been admitted. For a moment he hesitated, then he reached for it. His fingers trembled slightly as he powered it on, the screen lighting up the dim room with a pale glow. Notifications flooded in instantly, messages, missed calls, headlines, too many, too loud. He ignored them all, except one, an unknown number, no name. No history, just a single message, sent 30 minutes ago. Jungkook's heart began to pound as he opened it. The screen flickered for a second before the words appeared. Leave before he pays the price for your survival. Breath caught, a sharp, suffocating pressure gripped his chest as he read it again and again. Leave before he pays the price. His mind raced, piecing it together, forcing connections he didn't want to make. Jimin wasn't running from something, he was obeying it. Jungkook's grip on the phone tightened, his pulse roaring in his ears. Who are you? He whispered as if the sender could hear him through the silence. The screen dimmed slightly, and then another message appeared. This time there was no delay, no hesitation, as if they had been waiting for him to read the first. You don't remember everything, do you? The words felt like a blade sliding slowly under his skin. Jungkook's breathing turned uneven. What do I not remember? He typed back, his fingers moving faster than his thoughts. For a moment, nothing happened. The rain outside grew louder, tapping against the glass like restless fingers. Then the typing indicator appeared and stayed until finally, a photo came through. Jungkook stared at the screen, his entire body going rigid. It was dark, grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakable. A road, a car, headlights cutting through the night, and two figures. One of them was him, the other Jimin. But that wasn't what made Jungkook's blood run cold. It was what Jimin was doing. He wasn't pushing Jungkook out of the way. He was pulling him directly into the path of the car.
Jungkook's fingers went numb. The phone nearly slipped from his grasp as the image burned itself into his mind, every pixel searing deeper than the last. The rain outside grew louder, or maybe it was just the sound of his pulse crashing in his ears, drowning out everything else. He breathed, shaking his head slowly, as if denial alone could rewrite what he was seeing. That's not what happened. The image didn't change. Jimin's hand, firm, undeniable, wrapped around Jungkook's wrist. Pulling him forward, not away. A sharp pain stabbed through Jungkook's chest, not from his injuries, but from something far worse, the collapse of trust, of memory, of everything he thought he knew. His hands trembled violently as he zoomed in on the image, desperate to find something, anything that proved it was fake. A glitch, a trick of light. But the more he stared, the clearer it became. Jimin's face, Even in the grainy darkness, Jungkook could recognize the tension in his jaw, the intensity in his eyes. It wasn't panic, it wasn't fear, it was determination. "Why?" Jungkook whispered, his voice breaking under the weight of it. The phone buzzed again, another message. "You were never meant to survive that night." Jungkook's breath hitched, his vision blurring for a moment before snapping back into focus. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it might tear through his ribs. "What are you talking about?" he typed, his fingers clumsy, barely obeying him. The response came instantly. He made a choice. A cold wave of dread washed over him. He chose you. Jungkook's stomach twisted violently. No, that didn't make sense. If Jimin had chosen him, then why did it look like he was pulling him into danger unless that was the only way to save him? A fractured memory surged forward, forcing its way past the barrier in his mind, the road again, the blinding headlights, the sound of brakes screaming too late, and Jimin's voice, not panicked, not desperate, but urgent. "Trust me." Jungkook's eyes widened as the memory snapped into place. Jimin pulling him not into the car's path, but away from something else, something Jungkook hadn't seen. His breathing turned sharp, uneven. "There was something behind me," he whispered, the realization creeping in like a shadow. The phone buzzed again. "You're starting to remember." Jungkook clenched his jaw, anger rising now, cutting through the fear. "Then tell me the whole truth," he typed quickly. "What was behind me? Why did he do it?" This time the reply took longer, seconds stretched, the rain softened slightly but the tension in the room only tightened. "Then, he didn't push you into danger." Jungkook's heart stuttered. "He pulled you away from it." A shaky breath left his lips. "I knew it," he whispered, more to himself than to the screen, but the relief didn't last because another message followed immediately. "And that's exactly why they want him gone." Jungkook froze. He typed slower now, more cautious. "Who is they?" The screen flickered slightly as if the connection itself was unstable. Then the answer came. "The people who were supposed to make sure neither of you walked away." The room felt suffocating. Jungkook's mind reeled, trying to process it, to fit it into something logical, but nothing about this was logical anymore. "This was planned," he whispered. No reply, his grip on the phone tightened again. "Answer me." A pause, then, "Yes." The single word hit harder than anything else. Jungkook's chest rose and fell rapidly as pieces began to fall into place, forming a picture he didn't want to see. The accident wasn't an accident. Jimin knew that's why he had been so calm, that's why he had said he was protecting him, because whatever this was, it wasn't over. "Why us?" Jungkook typed, his hands trembling again. "What did we do?" The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, then appeared again, as if the sender was choosing their words carefully. "Finally, you weren't the target." Jungkook's breath caught. It was always him. A chill spread through his entire body. Jimin, everything pointed back to Jimin. He changed the outcome, the next message read, "And now they want to correct it." Felt something shift inside him then, fear yes, but also something else, something sharper. "They're going to kill him," he said out loud, the words tasting bitter and real. The phone buzzed. "If you stay, you'll make it easier for them." Jungkook's jaw tightened. "If I leave," he typed, a pause longer this time. "Then you might give him a chance to survive." Swallowed the room again. Jungkook stared at the screen, his reflection faintly visible in the dark glass. His eyes looked different, harder, more awake. Jimin had left to protect him, to draw danger away, to carry the weight alone. A bitter laugh escaped Jungkook's lips. "Idiot," he muttered, though his voice was thick with emotion. "You really thought I'd just sit here and let you do that?" The heart monitor beside him spiked again as he swung his legs over the side of the bed, ignoring the sharp pain that shot through his body. Every movement hurt, but staying still hurt more. He grabbed his jacket from the chair, pulling it on with shaking hands as his mind raced. "You're making a mistake." The new message appeared just as he stood up. Jungkook stared at it for a moment. Then he typed back, his expression steady despite the storm inside him. "Did you when you thought I'd run?" Didn't wait for a reply. The phone slipped into his pocket as he took a step toward the door, then another. The hallway outside was quiet, dimly lit, the kind of silence that made every sound feel too loud, too exposed. Jungkook moved anyway, because for the first time since he woke up, he wasn't afraid of what was coming, he was afraid of being too late. And somewhere far beyond the rain-soaked city streets, Jimin was walking straight into the darkness alone, but not anymore. The hallway lights flickered as Jungkook stepped out, each pulse of dim white illumination slicing the silence into fragments. His footsteps echoed too loudly against the polished floor, uneven, unsteady, but determined. Every breath burned, every step pulled at the bandages wrapped around his ribs, a sharp reminder that his body wasn't ready for this, but his mind didn't care. Jimin was out there, and whatever had been waiting for them that night was still waiting. Jungkook tightened his grip on the wall as a wave of dizziness hit him. For a second the world tilted, the edges of his vision darkening. He forced himself to stay upright, jaw clenched, refusing to fall back into helplessness. Not now, not when everything was finally starting to make sense, or at least enough to be dangerous. The elevator at the end of the hall chimed softly as it opened. Too perfect. Jungkook froze, a strange tension coiled in his chest, instinct prickling at the back of his neck. The door stood open, empty, waiting, but something about it felt wrong, too quiet, too still. He glanced at the stairwell door instead. A choice, fast, risky. Uncertain, just like everything else. Jungkook exhaled sharply and turned toward the stairs. The metal door creaked as he pushed it open, the sound echoing down the concrete shaft. The air inside was colder, heavier, carrying the faint smell of dust and rust. He moved quickly, gripping the railing as he descended. 1 floor, 2, by the third his breathing had grown ragged, each inhale cutting deeper than the last. Sweat clung to his skin despite the cold, his body already reaching its limit. But he didn't stop, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant fear. When he reached the ground floor, he paused just long enough to steady himself before pushing the door open. The hospital lobby was dim, nearly empty. A single receptionist sat behind the desk, half asleep, the glow of her monitor casting pale light across her face. She didn't notice him, or pretended not to. Jungkook kept his head down as he moved past, every nerve on edge. The glass doors slid open with a soft hiss. And the storm greeted him. Rain poured relentlessly, drenching the pavement, turning the world into a blur of reflections and shadows. Thunder rolled overhead, low and distant, like a warning that had already been ignored. Jungkook stepped outside. The cold hit him instantly, soaking through his clothes, biting into his skin. But it helped, it cleared his head. For a moment he just stood there, letting the rain wash over him, grounding himself in something real. Then he moved. Streets were nearly empty at this hour, the city reduced to distant lights and the occasional passing car. Jungkook's eyes scanned everything, the sidewalks, the corners, the dark spaces between buildings, looking for him or them. His phone buzzed again. He stopped under the weak shelter of a streetlight, pulling it out with damp fingers. "You left." Let out a quiet breath. "You're watching me," he muttered. The reply came instantly. A flicker of anger crossed his face. "Then stop talking in riddles," he typed. "If you know where he is, tell me." The rain tapped against the screen as he waited. A few seconds passed, then, "He's heading somewhere familiar." Jungkook frowned. Familiar, his mind raced, flipping through memories, places that mattered, places that meant something to both of them. A rooftop, a small cafe tucked into a quiet street, the riverbank where they used to sit for hours, saying nothing, just listening to the water move. And then his breath caught. He whispered, there was one place above all others. The place Jimin always went when things became too heavy, too real. Jungkook turned sharply, already moving before the thought fully settled. "You already know," the next message appeared. Jungkook didn't reply, he didn't need to. His feet carried him faster now, ignoring the pain, the exhaustion, the warning signs his body kept screaming at him. Because if he was right, Jimin wasn't running, he was going to face it, alone. The streets blurred past him, the rain distorting everything into streaks of light and shadow. His breath came in short, uneven bursts, his heart pounding relentlessly as adrenaline pushed him forward. A turn, another, and then he saw it, the abandoned overpass at the edge of the city, empty, silent, a place forgotten by everyone except them. Jungkook slowed as he approached, his instincts sharpening again. The air felt different here, heavier, charged with something unseen, waiting. He stepped onto the cracked pavement, the faint hum of distant traffic vibrating beneath his feet. Water dripped steadily from the rusted metal beams above, each drop echoing in the hollow space. "Jimin," he called out, his voice cutting through the rain. No answer, only the wind. Jungkook moved further in, his eyes scanning the shadows, and then a figure standing at the far end of the overpass, still unmoving. Relief surged through him instantly. "Jimin, stop." The voice wasn't Jimin's. Jungkook froze. The figure stepped forward slightly, enough for the dim light to catch the edge of his silhouette, tall, dressed in black, exactly like the nurse had described. Jungkook's pulse spiked. "Where is he?" he demanded, his voice steady despite the fear creeping back in. The man tilted his head slightly as if studying him. "Closer than you think," he replied. A second presence shifted in the shadows behind Jungkook. Too late, Jungkook turned just as something hard struck the side of his head. Pain exploded through his skull, the world spinning violently as his knees buckled. The ground rushed up to meet him, cold and unforgiving, his vision blurred, darkened, but not before he saw another figure stepping out of the shadows ahead, this one familiar, Jimin. Their eyes met for a split second. And in that moment Jungkook saw it again, not fear, not hesitation, but the same devastating certainty. "I told you to stay away," Jimin's voice broke through the chaos, strained, almost desperate. Jungkook tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. His body refused to respond, slipping further into darkness. "Touch him," Jimin snapped, his tone suddenly sharp, dangerous, a pause, tension, then a low chuckle from one of the men. You really think you're still in control here? Jungkook's vision flickered, fading in and out. The last thing he saw was Jimin stepping forward, placing himself between Jungkook and them. Alone, again. And this time there was no running left.